So nice to see you all this morning. Thank you so much for joining us for Canopy's first virtual event. And we're so grateful to Amy Rizak, who's here with us this morning to kick off our webinar series this fall. Amy works with management teams, individuals, and entire companies to help them level up their communication and increase sales. She is a very well-respected sales executive and has a distinguished 15-year career. Amy helps her clients forge solid relationships with strategic partners across all organizational levels and really helps create lifelong customers. As I mentioned in our invite that you may have seen, Amy's a certified expert in body language training, something super interesting, and she's actually certified from the Science of People. And this allows her to help business professionals become more aware of their nonverbal communication and also helps them read and understand nonverbal cues from clients and other colleagues. Amy joined Canopy as an expert this fall, and we are all really looking forward to learning tips from her today on what to do to make the best of Zoom meetings and, more importantly, what not to do during Zoom meetings. So thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you all for completing our first poll also. Looks like that popped up for you when you joined. So we have a great mix of clients, consultants, and a number of friends of Canopy here this morning. So let's see the results of who's here. It looks like the highest percentage we have listed is nonprofit, about 23%. We have about 15% in marketing, 15% in operations, 11% in finance, and about the same in business development and sales, and then about 30% in our other category, kind of our catch-all. So I think we can all really benefit from Amy's presentation this morning. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Amy. Thank you again and welcome. And we were so happy to have you here with us this morning.
Thank you all for being here, and thank you, Griffin, for that. I am excited to share this hour with you. Thank you for jumping on yet another Zoom call. I know we are all Zoomed out, but hopefully at the end of this, you will have some takeaways. So really, the hour here is for you guys to have, I always like the number 3, but to have 3 takeaways that you can put into actionable items and steps within your business practice after we are done here. So the goal is for you to have those, pick a number, whatever number feels good for you this morning, and then jot those down throughout this class. Anything that is an aha moment to you, something that you say, oh, I can definitely use that in my practice as soon as I get off of this call. We'll ask you at the end to share some of those if you're up for sharing. Also, oh, here's the poll results, so you guys can see that. But also, what I want you to do is know that this is an interactive class. So we are going to be sharing some things, but I will be asking along the way some questions. If you do have questions, please go ahead and use the chat feature to jot those down. Rachel is going to man that for us, and she'll jump in and ask those as we go. And then you can also, here's your first tip for the day. You can also go ahead and unmute yourself by clicking and holding down that space bar. That will unmute you while you speak when you're holding it down. And then once you have done with your question, you can just take your hand off of it and that will mute you back up. That saves you from having to do the ever so common, where's my mute button, right? So we're gonna jump right into this. Let me share my screen here so you all can see my, all right. Thumbs up if you can see that screen. Yes, perfect. Thank you. So you are on mute, how to confidently connect through virtual media. So as Griffin said, I have a background in nonverbal communication. I have a lifetime of sales in my career, and my passion is getting you and companies excited about how they communicate and connect to grow their business. We're going to talk around that on how to do that virtually today. Okay. Give me a second because it always, okay. So we have 3 takeaways today in 3 sections. We're going to break it down to your basics and your setup. This is your technology side. The start of the meeting, how are you prepping yourself? How are you getting that meeting going and started before you click that video? And then during the meeting, what's going on during the meeting? How are you staying engaged? What's happening? How can you bring people back in along that journey? Okay. So your basics and your setup here, these are your, we're going to stick into Zoom because There's a ton of technology out there right now. Zoom is where a lot of people land, so we're going to stay there for your plans and your profile setup today. We are going to go through 2 things on your profile setup that might be of interest to you. We're going to go through a few settings, only because there's a lot of settings. And then your meetings, we're not going to touch on that too much because you already have that programmed. You know exactly what's going to be on your agenda, how you're going to run your meeting. So you have that one covered. We're going to help you with the first 3. Something to keep in mind here when we're going through the technology side of this is that when we were all in this together in March and April, everyone pivoted and decided, okay, oh my gosh, we have to get on all these webinars. We need to see people's faces, and we jumped right in, right? For an example of that, I hold a networking event monthly. It used to be in person. So we pivoted to Zoom. First thing I did was I need to just go on and get a basic free plan. As soon as I did that and started diving down into that, it was clear to me that for the options and the growth of who I wanted on those networking events, the basic plan wasn't going to cut it for me. So I want you to think of technology a little bit differently, in that now Zoom and the technology behind it can actually propel your business. It can actually help you move your business forward, and you want to use it for that, instead of, oh, this is just a platform I have to get on because we cannot meet face to face. So think of that a little bit differently when you're going in here. And really on the back end, on the settings side, then you want to go ahead, hold on, I'm going to share my other screen. You want to go ahead and pick a plan then that will put you in growth mode. So let's say that you are okay right now for the basic free plan. Go ahead and look at what options come with the plan that's just up from that you can pay for. And those might be things that are valuable for you to put into your practices and things you can bring to the table. You can add value in your meetings. Really want to look at those. So your pricings and your plans are here on your Zoom. You might all know this. This might be a little bit of a recap here, but there's going to be some things that might jump out at you. Go ahead and look through that. The other thing is that Zoom is keeping up with the world, just like we are, and moving things constantly. So I urge you to go ahead and look through your plans every couple of months, go through your settings, make sure that everything stayed the same. Zoom just had an upgrade, an update. So I think we're on something 5 right now. I just did that last week, where there's new bells and whistles that are going on and happening. But what happens with that is in the back end with setting, it sometimes turns things off that we want on. So you want to just make sure that those things are there for you and don't get caught off guard, again, because we've now had all these months to where we need to have this technology work for us instead of against us, okay? So those are your pricings and your plans. Your profile is next. So your profile, 2 things on your profile is that you want your picture to be professional. You would like a picture in here that's a professional picture. You can change it at any time if you'd like, but the benefit of this is that inevitably, some of us are going to have to get up and excuse ourselves from a meeting at some point in time, right? And when we want to do this, we want to make sure that we are non-verbally engaging. This is your first nonverbal tip. You're non-verbally engaging with this picture. Pictures engage more than words. So you want that picture up when you go ahead and you stop your video, your picture will come up instead of just your name. It's more professional, it has more impact for you. The other thing that you want to do is go in here, you will notice that my name says Amy and Canopy Consultant. You'll notice that under my video as well. You'll also notice that the Canopy team has their first name and their email address. This is how you do this. So you want to put your first name in here, and then you want to put whatever action you want someone to take in your last name. So for them, they put an email address in there. I was on a meeting about a month ago where there were 2 owners on the call, and they both had their Instagram handle in their last name. What did I do? I picked up my phone and followed both of them immediately. This is a great way to engage people without saying a word, of letting them know that they can take action and steps to connect with you. You can also go in here and change this anytime you want for any meeting that you have. So for me, we're focusing on Canopy Consulting today, which is amazing, and that's why I put that in there. For another meeting, maybe tomorrow, I'll change it if I want someone to contact me over email, or maybe I want them to follow me on LinkedIn, and I'll put that handle on there as well. Any questions on that? Okay, perfect. Yes.
Hi, this is Michelle. So,
Hi.
hi, not necessarily a question on that, but, and if you get to it later, awesome. But the screen share right now, I've never seen it where you have the screen share on the left and it's still gallery view on the right. Is that a special feature?
No, you can change it. So you should be able on your, so you have a list like all the pictures on the right side.
That's how I typically have it, but right now it's awesome. Like I see almost 20 people in gallery on the right, and then I see your screen share on the left.
Yeah, so you're able to control that. On the very top bar, should be the very top one, you should have one little bar, one kind of thicker bar, and then 2 bars, and then a whole lot of bars, or a whole lot of dots. You're probably in the one that has a whole lot of dots. So you can control that on your side of how many people you see.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. It just happened to default that way for you today. How fun is that? Okay, so going forward, your meetings and your webinars below here. We're not going to get into this. This is where you obviously set up a meeting. We've all done that. Webinars are a little bit heftier than meetings. We're going to stay in the meetings realm because that's where we are today. Meetings cap at about 100 people. If you are doing, webinars are really good for things like summits, and a lot of people, I think they go up to 500 people on a webinar. It does take away on those webinars, just as we were referring to with all the pictures on the side, seeing everybody's video, it takes that away. So those are your 2 main differences between those 2. Recordings here, I urge you all to record your Zooms. Couple reasons. One, you want to work on yourself and how professional you are over Zoom. This is all new to us. So it's really fun and maybe a little nerve-wracking to look back on these recordings and say, oh, I was doing that. That's something that I need to fix, right? It'll jump out at you. The other thing with these recordings is that it's a really good way to gauge your team. So if you are on team calls weekly, monthly, you can see who's checking out and who you might want to check in with. That's a really good way and a good feedback loop for you. So when you do record, like we're recording this today, once the Zoom meeting is done, it will go into the laptop mode or the computer mode, so it'll be on the desktop, but it also saves nicely within your Zoom platform. So you can always go back and look at all your recordings here. And then settings. So this is a big one. This is a big animal on settings, and we are going to, oh, sorry, hold on. We are going to click on this, and then my system's a little slow. Here we go. Okay. And scroll down to a few of these. So I apologize for the scroll. It's the only way I can get to them. But the first one is your security. Waiting room, you experienced this today, right? You all were in this holding room while we, as the Canopy team, were making sure that all of our setup was complete. We were on, we were professional, our background was great. All the things were set and ready to go before we let you in. When you are hosting a meeting, this is what you want. You want to take control of that technology to make you look good, right? To make you look like you're the one that owns the room. Now, we can't control everything. Our internet might go out, things happen. We all know that. We're all set for that. But the things we can control, we want to. So you want to turn this on so then you can have the flip of the button to let people in. I'm going to skip through security. Schedule a meeting. So this is one that I just have defaulted of host the video, or host video is on, participant video is on. The nice thing about that is you as a participant will always have control of your own screen inevitably. So I have it defaulted to on, but if you don't want it on, you turn it off, right? But it's something in the setting that will automatically populate. And then the big one, yes.
That popped up about recording. I think this is helpful. Is it necessary to let people know that you're recording them prior to that?
I think it depends on your meeting. So if you were going into a meeting of possible clients, potential clients, I would probably let them know. And I would ask beforehand, say, you know, I usually record these for my own personal growth and learning more things about technology on this side and how we're doing virtual meetings. Would you mind if I recorded this? If not, completely fine, and I will not. So bring them into the conversation. Let them have a voice on that. Now, if it's your team, I think it's something that you can just say, we're going to work together on how to grow ourselves professionally. within this virtual environment. So I'm going to start recording these, and then we can have conversations around it. Right? So it's a team aspect there. Great question. So in meeting basics, this is kind of your bread and butter here of what we want to go over today. Your chat feature, that's turned on today. You will notice that. Private chat, you want defaulted to on as well. So if people want to private chat, they can. And then auto-saving chats is a great one. So we're recording the Zoom, and then what beautifully happens when we record is that when this auto-save chat is on, it actually saves all of the chat. So it saves it in this, it captures it in something almost looking like a PDF. And it's really nice and valuable for things if you have a lot of people on a Zoom or a meeting that starts putting in their contact information in the chat feature. It's a great way to snapshot that and save it so you're not losing it at the very end, because as soon as that call goes off, it's gone. So it's great to auto save that. It's also great if you have a ton of information that you need to correspond with your team. So instead of a follow-up email, maybe on the call, you're just gonna share something. So you're sharing maybe some contacts or links that are happening. That's all gonna be saved. So you can have that and go back to that. And if somebody loses it, you can just send them that chat, okay? The last one, co-host is great, polling is great. So you experienced the poll today. We did a poll at the very beginning, and what we did was we launched that before we ever let you in the room. This is a really good engagement piece. The struggle with virtual versus in-person is keeping that engagement throughout the hour. How do we do that? How do we make sure that those people are engaged with us? In turn, if we are attending and not hosting, how are we keeping engagement with people? Okay, so filling out those polls helps the host in gaining some information, especially when we have a lot of people on the call and we're not able to go one by one to introduce ourselves. This is helpful. It's a really fun engagement tool, okay? So polling is a wonderful one. Make sure to add that. If this is not added in your settings, you will not be able to add a poll once you have a meeting. Okay. Screen share is great as well. The last one I want to go over is whiteboard. So whiteboard is here. This is a fun one, and it's a little bit newer. So you can turn this on default in the back end. I'm going to show you a little bit about what it looks like here. So this is what whiteboard does. So I can start going through and highlighting some things. I can also draw if I want to here. So this is fun. This is a really great fun team thing to do as well. You can turn whiteboard on and people can add to it. Or if, let's say, you had breakout rooms or groups who had something that they needed to do and then came back to the main group, this is a great visual way to go through what everybody came up with. So that's whiteboard for you, and turn it on. So again, a lot of settings to go through. Go through this, take an hour, take some time, grab your coffee or tea, whatever you can cozy up with, and go through this back end of Zoom and really make sure that you have things on that you want on. Play around with these settings. The last one is your nonverbal. I just noticed this one on here, so I'm going to show you this one as well. But your nonverbal feedback, meeting reactions. If the Canopy team can go ahead and do those reactions for me right now. Those, yes, thank you, Rachel. So you'll see those hand claps, the thumbs up. You'll want these on because, again, we're talking all around engagement throughout this meeting. This is a really good way to get engagement.
Amy, one question on that. Allison Peters, one of our consultants, said she's really interested in ideas for how to track people's engagement and body language while the meeting content is running at the same time. Is there a way to track some of that engagement?
That's a tough, well, if you're the host, that's a tough one because you are running the meeting. You're not able to monitor that body language. I would say, especially if it's a team or a group of people that you're meeting with over and over again, definitely start recording those or have other people start taking sections of the meeting so you then can monitor that. The best way to do that is just put the videos up and start monitoring what people are doing, who's engaged non-verbally. And we're going to talk a little bit in the last section of how we do that. So you'll know once we're done with this things to look out for and might jump out at you. I don't know about something that that actually tracks that, though. That's a really interesting question. I'll have to look into that. That would be tough. But the engagement of things like the emojis that they just did, you know, the hand claps, the thumbs up, those types of things, your chat feature, you obviously can see those right away, and that's something that will help you out too. That's something you can say in the beginning. I want you all to use those today. You can actually use a number around that too. So if it's a training class or a meeting with people that you normally meet with weekly, say the goal here is that I want you to have three things that you do to engage in this meeting in this hour. So whether that's a thumbs up on those emojis, whether that's a chat feature, but at the end of this, you need 3. So you can actually bring them into that conversation and say, this is your goal and this is your job today. That would be helpful as well. Thank you, Griffin. Anyone else? Okay. I'm going to flip back to here. The last thing I want us to do is the settings when we are actually live in the meeting. So there's a few here. You all should have this toolbar that says mute, stop video, all those fun things. To the right of the mute, I want you to just hover your mouse over the little down arrow, and it props up with all of this information about your microphone. The only reason I'm showing you this is because you do want to touch your microphone. This goes back to your technology and making it work for you in a professional setting. So you can, it does have their test speaker and microphone. Don't do that now, but you can do that when you're practicing. You want to do some Zooms in practice mode. And all that is you just start a meeting. Nobody has to be on the other side with you. You're alone in the meeting and you play around with all these settings, okay? So that's an option for you. The next little down arrow that's right to the next, or right to the right of your stop video has select a camera, and then it has some things below it. Go ahead and click on that video settings for me. And then that video setting should come up with your face in the middle. And on the left-hand side, it has general video. It has all these different things. It should be on video. If it's not, go ahead and click video there. And the one tip I'm going to give you in this, you can play around with this after this call, but the one tip I'm going to give you on this is in the middle there, then now it says my video, and it says mirror my video. If you check or uncheck that, it's going to change your background. So if you watch me on my video right now, it's going to change my background. So it mirrors it. So my plant is actually to my left, which is my left in my space. So it can mirror or non-mirror. The other thing is touch up your appearance, which is great when you have low lighting and some things that are going on. You want to go ahead and check that touch up my appearance. If you have upgraded to the latest version of Zoom, it should also have a bar there, so it tells you can play around with that of how much you want to touch it up. And it also has a button when you do upgrade to adjust for low lighting as well, which is wonderful because a lot of us have struggles with that. So that's your little takeaway of when you're actually in the Zoom. Again, go ahead and click out of that. Again, this is something that you can do, maybe on a really boring Sunday night when you are on your computer and you're messing around, you're sitting on your couch. I'm going to just launch a Zoom for myself and play around with all of these settings so you get comfortable with being in the room here. Okay? Any questions on all the settings on the technology side before we jump to the section 2? Good? Okay. Awesome. So start of the meeting. How do we start our meetings today? I want you to think about that. Think about how you start a virtual meeting. So which means what do you get? Do you get your coffee? Do you get everything set up? How do you settle in versus how you do an in-person meeting? What is the difference between the two? Are you more relaxed before you get on a virtual meeting? Are you as prepped before you get on a virtual meeting? You should be. And these are some of the things that we're going to talk around. So here we go. The very first one, and one of the biggest ones, is your lighting. Lighting is crazy important. You don't want any backlighting. You want to go away from the backlighting. You want front lighting. Not all of us have amazing spaces for that. So one of the best things that you can purchase, you want 2 things. If there's nothing else that you purchase for all of your virtual meetings, you want 2 things that will elevate you up. One is a ring light, and I'm going to show you this. So if you look at my video right now, I'm going to take off my ring light. And now it's going to be back on. You see the difference there? This is a ring light. It's $16 on Amazon. I think when we ran through this, Griffin actually grabbed her phone and ordered it immediately. It is one of the best purchases that you can have for all of these virtual meetings. Virtual is here to stay. So level it up, make sure that it's working for you. This is a great find. And I think Rachel's gonna put in the chat a link to this one for you so you can have this one as well. Okay, so that's your number one, that's your lighting. Your background, let's talk around background. Background should not be busy. It should be professional. If nothing else, have it a blank wall. But it should not be anything that's distracting away from you. You want the focal point to be you, okay? Making sure that there's limited distractions there. Your dress. So dress is an interesting one. You know, we can get away with a lot of things, and it's funny because now when I purchase clothes, I look specifically for pattern because those tight patterns that we tend to wear sometimes actually tend to move virtually. We've all seen that on TV every once in a while where someone will have a really tight pattern on and you're like, oh my gosh, that's really hard to watch because of that. That's why. It's something that has to do with the technology. So making sure that we have bigger patterns going on within whatever we decide to wear. Also, our jewelry. Women, we tend to do this. We have jewelry that makes noise. We do not want that. So like bangle bracelets, we want to do away with that. If you are a pen clicker, we also want to do away with that. So no noise, things that are loud going on, right? I want to make sure that that's going on with your dress. Also with dress, here's a fun fact with this. Color brings additional attraction to you within a Zoom meeting. Why? So if you look around right now, so if you are one of the people that has all of your video up as well of the people, you will notice most people are wearing neutral colors. And the people who are not, and they're wearing colors that are brighter, they tend to stand out. This is a challenge for me. I am 100% neutral colored clothing person. So I have found that I have to get out of my box a little bit, still be professional and still have something that makes me feel great in it, but something that adds a pop of color. So I'll either add a pop of color of a shirt or even nails right now, things that will just add something to that. That's something that's fun with dress. Men, something that I've seen a lot happening right now on those meetings for a fun kind of introductional, hello, how are you, a spark that creates a conversation, are ties and bow ties. I can't tell you how many bow ties I've been seeing lately. Just super fun. It gets you out of the box. It's a conversation starter. It relaxes everyone in the room. So think about something that really works for you. For me, I don't know if you've noticed, but I have big chunky earrings on. That's something I've had my entire life. I love suits with big chunky earrings. Well, it has worked for me now virtually. Everyone always gets on a call and says, oh, what earrings are you wearing today? Let me see your earrings. All of that is a conversational spark. We want to make sure that we're engaging that way. Use what's fun and energetic and your personality to shine through on these, okay? Last one, step back a little bit. We do not want to be, you can see my screen, but this is not where we want to be. Okay, we need to be backed up. We need to be waist up within the screen. There's a reason for this. We're going to get into this in just a second. Okay. The last one is your microphone and how people hear you. I'm going to show you this in just a second.
Amy, we have a question about
move on. How much does the height of the screen matter? Is there an optimal height to be at the most flattering angle?
Yes. So we don't want to be down, and I have mine raised, so I'm not able to show you that, but we don't want to be at this down angle. If anything, we want to be at an angle that's raised just a little bit this way. The other thing that you can do is, like for me, I cut off my head a little bit, which is completely fine. That's something that you can do. Just making sure that you can see your arms, you can see everything that's going on, torso up, and then the background as well. So making sure that it's raised and elevated just a tad bit. There's a few things that you can do. We've just talked about that this morning. A few things that you can do to elevate that. Books are a great one. That's also another conversation spark. So raise your computer or your laptop with books, stack some books. And maybe one of the polls that you do the next time you launch a meeting is, what are you using to raise your computer a bit? Okay. A lot of times it is books. So then the next question would be, what are the books? Have you read them? Are they good? Would you recommend them? Conversation sparks, right? We're thinking a little bit out of the box. of how we do that. Think of your space, utilize your space really well to create those conversations. Great question, Griffin. Rachel, did you have something? Oh, unmute. Mm-mm.
It was the same
There you
question.
go. Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you, Amy.
Good. Yeah. Before we go to prep the awkwardness, I want to show you the microphone aspect as well. So right now I'm going to show you this, and it's going to get a little bit loud because it's going to come up to my face. But this is a podcast microphone. It's big and clunky, but it works beautifully. And all I do is I plug it into my laptop. I think we're going to have a link to purchase this exact one also, and I think it's actually on sale right now. So for under $100, you have your light and your microphone that just elevated you beyond a lot of people that are on all these Zooms, right? That you're making this work for you. So here's an example of this. The microphone is on right now. Give me a second. Can you all hear me now? This is the difference. This is my laptop. Yeah, it's super echoey. The other thing is that like a lot of other people, I have cats, I have dogs, and all those things echo, right? And I have a big ceilinged room, my office, so it's really echoey. But this is my laptop speaker versus the microphone, okay? So let me put that back in. Okay, so does that sound better? Y'all can hear me still? Perfect. So that's the difference between your microphone as well. Huge difference. And it's something that we need to, again, take that technology piece and use to our advantage, okay? Prepping for awkwardness. This is always fun. So we want to practice, practice, practice. The more we practice, the easier this is going to be. I can't tell you how many times the Canopy team and I practiced some of these things and how to toggle back and forth my PowerPoint versus in my Zoom account setting, all those things. You want to practice that so you look like the professional in the room. So you're not the one in the beginning of March or April where everyone was okay with searching for the things that you need, searching for how to turn your video on, your mute off and on, those types of things. Those need to be really polished now. And again, the way to do that is either take a trusted group of people and say, we're going to just spend an hour practicing this today and getting this down. What are you seeing? What am I seeing? All those fun things. You can easily do that with your team to level up your team for their meetings. The other thing you can do, again, on the couch, Sunday night, pop on one, just open up a Zoom. The other thing that I do, I don't know about you, but I have multiple email accounts. So I've set up basic free accounts on different emails, and then I will log myself in on those different emails so I can actually visually see what's going on. So those are your practice tips.
One more quick question on the microphone. Would you say the dedicated microphone is a must, or do AirPod Pros work with the same quality?
You know, if you think about podcasts and you think about all the setups that they have, or a radio station and all the setups that they all have that type of mic. And so I think for professionalism and something that's not in your ear, so that's also a visual that's happening all of a sudden. AirPods are great. I mean, I love AirPods just as much as anybody else. But I think for a business professional look and something that sounds at a quality that's leveled up, not just something that you want to listen to music to or answer your cell phone on, I think that the microphone is a better way to go. It's a little bit more professionally polished. Anything else? Okay. So tell everyone, this is something else. So we're setting up our room, right? So we're preparing for the awkwardness of things to maybe not happen. You want to tell everyone in your house, everyone in your office, I'm jumping on a Zoom right now, and so I'm off limits for the next hour, hour and a half. The way you can do this, especially if you're at home, you have kids, you have a husband, you have all the things, is put big posters up. Make it fun if you want to do that with your family. And they can decorate those and say, do not disturb, or whatever wants to come up. Tape those to your door. And then the other thing you want to do is remind people. So here's an example of what literally happened to me last month. I was on a Zoom meeting that I was leading most of, and my husband was on the same one. He was attending. I was upstairs where I am now doing the meeting. He was downstairs in his office. We have a 7-month-old puppy. And so I assumed that since I was running the meeting, he handled the puppy, right? Pretty soon, about halfway through, I hear little pitter-patter feet. running up the stairs and running past me and going into our bedroom while he chews shoes. So my thought immediately was, I am speaking. I have no idea what I'm currently saying because I'm thinking about what high heel he is chewing currently that I don't want him to ruin. And how do I excuse myself to go get the dog? And then what do I do with him? So all these things started happening in my mind. What happened then on the screen? I am completely checked out. I don't know what to do. I'm not in my meeting anymore. So unprofessionalism just totally happened. And it all could have been avoided if we just had a quick conversation to say, can you handle the dog? Who's handling the dog? Where do we need to put him? Right? But it was an assumption that he would just grab him and take care of him. So what ended up happening was I worked it in to the meeting and said, yeah, somehow, we have this dog. He's currently running amok, chewing shoes. That was my husband's cue to be like, oh, I need to go get the dog. So it worked out fine, but we had a conversation afterwards of what were we thinking? We needed to check in with each other to make sure we had everything covered. Check in. So use those sticky notes, the fun things that you stick everywhere to say, closed doors here, but then also remind them, this is what's going on. This is what I need from you for the next hour. Bathroom break, coffee, tea, water, all those fun things, have those with you. Links and polls up, you've seen that today, making sure that those are set and ready to go. Silence your phone. Also, I would say put your phone away. We have a tendency, especially when we are attending a meeting, to have this nearby. And then what happens about halfway through the meeting is that we do this, right? This is unprofessional, this whole head thing down. And also what this is low power posing, which we're gonna get into in a minute here. So you do not wanna be doing this. Go ahead and put it in a drawer, put it completely away. It'll handle itself for an hour. Spot check. So you want to spot check everything around, right? Was your background good? Your teeth, your hair, everything is good. You want to make sure that everything's good. Listening face on, and then you're ready to go. So once you do that and you click video on, you're going to want to make sure that you are already set and in your meeting. So you're going to smile, you're going to set everything and forget it. You've done the best you can to prep everything, make sure everything's professional, and then you focus on the substance and you go. So the last one is during the meeting. What's going to happen during the meeting? Now, this is really where the nonverbal communication comes into play and how you can monitor some of these things. That was the question earlier. So you want to connect and stay engaged. To be interesting, we need to be interested. I'm going to say that one again. To be interesting, be interested. We need to be interested in the people who are on these calls. We have all hosted a meeting where we feel very isolated, very alone. No one's asking anything or answering any questions. We need to help these people out, right? We've all been there. We need to be engaged. We also need to be engaged in the fact that as a host, we want to engage people in. So using that technology and using some of these nonverbal techniques as well. So the last technology piece here that we're just gonna shout out on are social boosting. I think, Serena, do we have a poll on this one? I'm going to talk around that while it maybe comes up. There we go. So go ahead and answer this poll while I'm talking around this. I'm going to answer it too, just for fun. So conversation starters and polls. So here's a great way of doing this. We coupled a conversation starter and a poll together right at the beginning of this, okay? We just did this again now, where that conversation starter was something fun, unique, out of the box. It really doesn't pertain to everything we're doing currently, but it's engaging the whole group, which is fun. And we did that through polls. Chat feature, obviously, you guys are using that. We have 29 chats in there right now, which is amazing. So you use that to your benefit. The other thing that you can do for engagement throughout a meeting is ask people to put stuff in the chat, keep them engaged. The biggest difference between virtual and in person is the amount of times we need to check in with the group. That is the biggest difference. Everything else correlates the same, shockingly enough, even our nonverbal. But really the biggest difference is those check-ins. Usually when we're in person, we just say, okay, so if you guys have any questions, just hold them to the end and we'll recap and cover that. That's not what we should be doing on virtual. We need to keep them engaged throughout the sections. So strategically do that. You will notice in this hour, we have strategically placed those. So notice the format of this hour as well. We did that on purpose, okay? Your PDFs. So PDFs are fun. If you have a lot of things coming up or hyperlinks, or again, if you want to share a ton of stuff with people and you don't want to email that out, you can go ahead and prep a PDF prior to the meeting, and then you can actually attach that within the chat. People can click on it and download that right to their laptop or their computer. Super easy. And reactions. So you all should have reactions on your toolbar now. I want you to go ahead and click one of those reactions for me. I want to see them all. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Griffin. Perfect. Karen, yay. Michelle, Allison, woohoo! Thank you, guys. Use these. Use these to your advantage. There's a one main reason why, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But really use these. These are really important for engagement. Keep people knowing that you are engaged. You, again, have that host person that's talking, right? When they are talking to an empty screen and they see a little hand clap or a thumbs up, that keeps them going, and that makes you memorable. It makes you memorable. Okay.
Amy,
Yes.
I'm gonna share the results from our last poll.
Perfect.
So that everybody can see what others are doing.
Oh, shopping online. That's
yeah,
fantastic.
lots of shopping online. How do you feel about the Zoom on top, party on the bottom? Is that sort of, yeah, can you speak to that a little bit? It looks like a lot of people are wearing pajamas.
Yes, myself included. I think that's totally fine. I'm not today. So here's what I would think on that. Here's my take on that one, is that I normally, in any sort of normal meeting that I have that's not a presentation or a training, I am in comfy clothes on the bottom, and then I'm professional on the top. If I need to power up and make sure that I am on and engaged and really in my space and my element, like today, I am fully dressed with heels. I have heels on right now. As soon as we get off of this, I'm going to walk 2 feet and take them off in my closet. But it really just depends on how you feel, right? So it's totally fine to do that. We're in a comfort of our own home. The thing to be mindful on is how you're showing up nonverbally when you're doing that, because you are more comfortable, which means that it's going to be easier for you to lax on camera. It is anyway, so make sure that you're aware of that.
Thank you. And will you speak to eating as well? It looks like we had a number of participants eating breakfast on Zooms too.
Yes. So eating is one that, you know, when we're with our pals, or if we're doing a happy hour or something that's really low key, that's fine. If it's a lunch meeting and it's prefaced there to bring your lunch and we're gonna, you know, work through the lunch hour, that's okay too. But if you're snacking on stuff on a meeting, would you be doing that in an in-person meeting? Think about this equally to your in-person meeting. It's no different. Your nonverbal communication and how you're showing up is exactly the same. So you want to make sure that you are very aware of that and you're practicing that, and that's heightened for you. Again, it easily can be lost because you're safe behind a computer. So we want to make sure that we're putting those things away. The other thing is that if you are with, you know, you're talking to potential clients, let's say, or you're in a room where maybe your boss is there every week, those are things you probably don't want to be doing. You want to make sure that you are leveling yourself up to either a position that you want in the future, or letting them know that you have everything handled and you're doing an awesome job of where you're at. Those are all the same things that you would be doing in person. So putting the food away is a big thing. Now, drinking is a different one. You can absolutely have a cup of coffee, a glass of water, those types of things. I'm going to show you why this is important here in a second, but that's completely fine.
And Amy, so a couple great questions in the chat feature as well. Do you find that it can ever be distracting using the chat function or having too many sidebar private conversations?
Yes, and that's why, so if you are a host, you have somebody else man that. So like today, Griffin and Rachel are completely handling that chat. I have not looked at that once. If I can see how many are in there, but I haven't opened it up. If I do that, it's going to completely derail me. So I need to assign that to someone else. The other thing is,
as a participant, I think it came from the perspective of, if I'm a participant and I'm chatting privately, yes, am I still engaged with what you're saying?
Yes, 100%. So that depends on your group, and that goes back to your settings. So again, remember in that chat feature, you can turn on or off private chat. There's your key. So if you are in a group where you're like, I need their attention, they can't be going sidebar, turn off the private chat. that will help that. And then you can have your basic chats there, or you can completely turn off chat if you want to. But again, remember, that's your engagement piece virtually. That's the difference of engagement virtually versus in person. Anything else? Whew, you guys, those are awesome questions. Nicely done. Okay, so we're gonna jump into the presents here. This is, of course, my favorite. I was trained by the Science of People, which is a company out in Portland, Oregon, and that's all they literally do is science behind how people engage non-verbally, which is pretty fantastic. So your presence, the why obviously is to build rapport and develop trust. We want to do that in any sort of relationship that we have, whether that's a personal relationship, a friendship, or a business. We're going to stay in business realm here today. How to do that is to connect authentically and build relationships that inspire that forward action. So the question then is, how do we do that virtually, right? How do we really engage people in kind of a split second to say, ooh, I want forward action with them. I need to call them. I want to follow up with them. I think I should do business with them. We're going to talk around that. So your nonverbal communication is made up of three things. Body language, which is facial expressions. We're not going to get into that today. That's a week-long course. Posture, we're going to talk around that a little bit today. Your gestures, your vocal tone, and your ornaments. We're not going to talk around vocal tone or ornaments today. Your ornaments is your clothing. Make it work for you. I referenced that with my earrings, men with some fun ties, those types of things. Those are nonverbal cues and signals that create a spark in conversation. Use that to your advantage. Vocal tone. Two things on vocal tone. If you get nervous when you speak, the best way to combat that is to take a deep breath in. And then on your exhale is when you want to start speaking, and that's your natural tone. That will help with your nerves, and it will bring your tone down, because what we do with the nervousness is our pitch tends to go up. So that's vocal tone, not what we say. Keep that in mind. And lastly, on vocal, women tend to do this more than men on the question inflection. So when we're talking, everything ends with a question, even when it's not a question. We have all heard that. That is universally grating to the ear. Make sure that if you do that, you work with your team and your trusted group to combat that and work on that a little bit. Now, if somebody else is doing it, you can't help that. Just be aware of it and move on. But those are the two things that we're not going to focus on. We're going to focus a little bit on body language. So here's a question for you, and I would like you to go ahead and unmute yourself and answer it, or put it in the chat, whichever is most comfortable for you. What percentage of our communication do you feel is nonverbal?
60%.
I think 60%.
Mm-hmm.
More than 60%.
Yeah. Awesome. Any others in the chat?
Trending the same, if higher if possible.
Yes, yes. So you all are very correct and right on. This is always my favorite screen, hands down, when I do these trainings. Why? Because no one ever has gotten it wrong. However, here's the question, the second question follow-up to you is, how many of you actually have prepped or thought about your nonverbal communication prior to meetings? Thumbs up if you have. Okay. So some, right? We're getting there a little bit more. This is becoming a little bit more common. But what we're taught to do is really prep what we're saying, right? I don't know about you, but I was always taught that, especially in sales. What's your pitch? What are you going to say? How are you going to run the meeting? There was never a conversation around, how are you going to enter the room? What are you going to say, or what are you saying loudly without saying anything within those first couple seconds? So you are correct in that it goes up to 92%. If we combined the body language, the vocal tone, and the ornaments all together, everything together, our nonverbal communication would be up to 92% of how we communicate. If we're focusing just a little bit on the body language, it's up to 60%. So no matter what we fall in line with and what we're doing, we're helping ourselves when we can focus on this nonverbal a little bit. So again, here's to recap this. Your nonverbal signals are 12 to 13 times more powerful than your accompanying words. When you saw this screen, the first thing your mind did was 5, because you saw it first before you hear it. 12 to 13 times. Think about that for a second. 12 to 13 times more powerful than anything you'll ever say in a meeting. is your nonverbal signals, okay? So your first impression matters then, right? And this is what we talk around with this, with your first impression. Your first impression is a snap judgment of someone. We decide within 2 seconds if we are going to like someone, trust someone, and believe someone. In 2 seconds, if we're gonna like someone, believe someone, and trust someone. And here's the fascinating thing about this. Within that split second of judging someone, basically, we are 76% of the time accurate. 76% of the time accurate. So if we know this now, how are we going to use our first impression to really make an impact and to really grow our business?
Amy, does the first impression truly only happen the very first time you meet someone, or do you really actually have a second chance to make a first impression at a later meeting?
Yeah, you don't.
You don't.
I wish, right? If we're all having a bad day, let's say traffic was really bad when we got somewhere, when we were in-person meetings, we spilled our coffee, everything was going awry, and you just sit down and you're like, hey, how are you? You don't get it back. It is so much harder to gain that trust back from someone and gain those elements and those steps to gain that business. So you really want to be mindful of your first impression. You want to be mindful of how you're entering a room, what's going on. When is your meeting starting? Your meeting should always start well before your meeting is actually started. We're going to talk around how to do that a little bit. That's a great question. I wish, because we've all had those moments where we're like, well, that sucked. So here's a little study that was done on this, just to recap on it. So 20 minutes, there was a group of people who watched a full interview, 20-minute interview of people walking in and walking out, doing the full interview. There was another group of people who only watched 20 seconds of it. Since we are talking around first impressions and nonverbal, it is not shocking to know that those both groups rated equally on warmth, competence, and confidence, right? So you have that 20-second window there. Even with a full interview, those people made a judgment that was correct on the people just walking in the interview. Think about that the next time you were interviewing somewhere. What is the most impactful thing of that interview that's going to happen? It's going to be that split second, the first second through the 20 seconds of where you sit down, that will get you that job. Okay. So here's how we start this. We have prepped everything technology-wise, all of our surroundings. Now we need to prep us, right? Our nonverbal is going to show. So how do we do this? Well, we're sitting a lot now. So one of the ways that we can do this, so here's the thing too for nerves. This is just a little side note and something awkwardly that I do. So for nerves, something to counteract that if you are hosting or running a meeting is to do some sort of exercise, nothing strenuously, but that calms actually your nerves. So for me, my prep before I ever turn on my computer is I do 10 jumping jacks and then I sit down in my chair, right? So my adrenaline's kind of going and it's good, not nervousness anymore. And then what I do is I make sure that everything's set up and then I do high power posing. So I want everyone to do this with me. I want you to put your hands over your head, all up, hands and arms over your head. This is high power. This is universally winning, right? You see someone crossing the finish line this way. Low power is when they are defeated. We all know that as well. Low power, back to your phone, that's low power. Now what I want you to do is go ahead and put your hands on your hips. This is your Superman, Superwoman pose. This elongates you immediately. It makes you sit up in your chair. And the last thing to do is just ever so slightly lean forward. Okay, now I want you to stay there and relax your arms and your hands. This is how you should sit in your meetings. The thing that we do with virtual that's combative of this is that we get relaxed in our chair, right? So we'll maybe be leaning back or we're hunched over. This is your low power pose. We want to make sure that we're up in high power. High power, your posture is really important to your first impression, including over Zoom. You want to check in with yourself. If you need sticky notes or something, because this is all new, in your next meeting to say, sit up, stick that to the wall behind your computer, sit up, remind yourself. This is the first one.
Amy, we have a question on standing desks. Do you feel like that contributes to power pose, or what are your thoughts on standing versus traditional seated desks?
Yes. So I have a standing desk as well. The only reason why I'm not using it today is because I'm controlling my laptop. But if I am attending a meeting, I'm at my standing desk and I will stand. Absolutely 100%. One of the other things that I find with my chair, so my chair is low, which is great, and it wheels, which is great because I can then adjust, my torso up, but it also spins. So when I'm not hosting and I'm just attending, I tend to do this, which is not okay. So
And
those go ahead.
Sorry, one other question that came up is, where do you focus your eyes when you're presenting?
Yes, we'll get to that one in 2 seconds. That's your third powerhouse of your first impression. So we're almost there, and I'll address the eyes. Any other question on the high power, but absolutely on those standing desks, 100%. Make sure that you're still torso up on those. Okay. So I think this is the last poll that we have. What part of the body do you feel like you notice first when you meet someone new?
Amy, while our attendees fill that out, we had a really important question pop up. When you do your jumping jacks, are you still wearing your heels?
You know what's so funny is I thought that when I was saying it, and yes, I am.
Oh, wow. That's talented.
There's only 10. I only do 10, so it's not, completely, but yes. That is the best question of the day, by far. I'll give you guys a second to answer that poll, and then they'll share it, because this is going to give you the answer here. Any other questions while we're doing that? How's everyone feeling? Yes? Hand clap? Good, 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 good. Okay, so here's the results of this. Most people say the face. Second one are eyes, and then we go into clothing. Hair and hands are last coming in. So you are correct in the thinking that we see somebody's face first, right? But what we actually see first in someone are our hands. Notice that was the last one that people had said with hair. Our hands are your client makers because they're your trust factors. So back in the day when we were cavemen days, what we would do with our little land and our food is we would watch to see other humans come to us. And what would happen is we would see if they're a friend or foe. If they were a friend, their hands and their arms would be open and welcoming. If they were a foe, they would have a weapon in their hand. Us as humans still today subconsciously look at hands first. This is why a handshake is so absolutely important, but we're going to talk around how to utilize this virtually as well. So think about hands and gestures and how important they are. And if you've been watching my video, my hands have been in my screen constantly. And this is why. When we talked around the torso up, this is why. This is why you want to be back torso up, so you can actually have your hands in the screen. Now, as a host, that's a lot easier because I can talk with my hands. There are a few things I'm going to talk around as an attendee that you can do as well. Here's a study on this. So Science of People did a painstaking study on TED Talks. And at the time, they did what they say, 272 gestures was the lowest amount of people who liked, so like low TED Talks, people who really didn't like the TED Talks. The gestures for those people were 272 gestures. The highest TED Talks, so think of like Simon Sinek's of the world, those types of people, had 465 hand gestures or more. Double the hand gestures. And those rated highest. So think about that. It is a thing. It's something that we can use within our screen here. So we want them to be seen, right? So we want to make sure, again, we're torso up so they can be seen. We want to wave at the beginning. I don't know if some of you noticed. Some of you did wave, which is amazing. Good job. I noticed some of you. But as soon as you come on the screen, before you ever say anything, before you ever say hello, before you ever say, can you hear me? Which, by the way, replace can you hear me with, how are you doing today? Because if they can't hear you, they're not going to answer you anyway, and then you know that they can't hear you. So replace that with, how are you doing today? Okay, but wave first. That's the first thing you want to do before you ever vocally speak anything. You want to wave. At the end of the meeting, those awkward moments, those 3 seconds of, okay, bye, thanks for attending, and you're just sitting there, you want to wave. You want to wave at the end, right? You want to have expression when you talk. So let's say you're not a host and you're just attending. What can you do? Well, I don't know if you noticed that some of the Canopy group today had their coffee mugs. This is a beautiful way to do this. Okay, that's why this comes back into play. If you have coffee or if you have tea in the morning, definitely use this as a prop. It helps you. It also engages in sparks, right? We're talking around those conversational sparks. So if you see someone else, what's fascinating about this is a lot of times when you do this, someone else will do it because we tend to mirror people. So then what you can say is, oh, what are you drinking today? Do you have any creamer in there? Because I just bought pumpkin spice latte creamer and I'm addicted to that. That's your conversation spark, right? Keep those up. Your hands are your trust factors. In the afternoon, you can do your water, things like that. If it's a happy hour, obviously you can, that's a conversation spark, easy one, right? What are you drinking this afternoon? The other one that's beautiful is a pen. So this is a stabilizer. This is a really good one to use when you're in person as well. I tend to put my hands in my lap, especially when I'm in person. So a way to stabilize that for me and get that out of my head so I'm not thinking about it is to use a pen. So you can do that with your elbows on the table if you're far enough away from your computer and just rest them. Griffin was doing that earlier today. Or what I do is I just put, my hand under my elbow, and if somebody else is speaking and I'm just attending, this is usually the way I will sit. Have the pen as a stabilizer and it looks natural.
We have a great question around starting a meeting. You had mentioned, how are you? And a lot of our attendees today work with nonprofits, and the realities with COVID are that, it's tough. So do you have other suggestions for how to start a meeting? That's a great standard one, but other creative ideas.
Mm-hmm. It is a great standard one. If you don't want to necessarily do a question to open up that can of worms, you can also use it as a statement. So I am beyond happy to see your face today. Thank you for attending. Those are engaging as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be a question around it, but it could be something that still engages people, thanks them in a different way instead of saying, thank you for being on today. But you know what, Griffin, it is amazing to see your face today. You just lit up my whole day. Thank you for attending. Those are engaging. Does that help? Whoever answered or questioned that? Okay. I can put together, if you're interested in that too, especially for nonprofits, I can put together a list of those openers that might help you as well. Anyone else? Victoria, nice. I can do that for you. Okay, so those are hands. So we have the two, right? We have our posture and we have our hands. Now, whoever asked the question of eyes. Eyes are crazy important. And here's the thing. We as humans look at ourselves. And it's really difficult to get away from that. So when we are on screen, what we tend to do is look at ourselves, right? That's a really hard thing to kind of revert from. The other thing that we do is when somebody's talking, we look at their video and not the camera. So then so if they're looking at us, everything is in disarray. So what you want to do as a host, here's my general rule. As a host or someone who's leading, you always look at the camera. The camera is your focal point there. This is a really great way to do this. Grab your sticky note, say eyes here, and stick it right next to your camera. This brings your eye level up so you're not distracted with all of the movement of people on the video until you're pretty trained on watching that camera, okay? If you are attending, so if you have questions that you are talking around or you're having a statement that you're asking, you do that by looking at the camera. Always look at the camera when you're speaking. Once you're not speaking and you're just attending, think of it again back to an in-person meeting. We don't stare down the presenter. We are looking around the room casually. You can completely do that on virtual as well. Look around the room, see who's around the room, see what people are doing, how their posture is. These things are gonna come into play now. As soon as you get on another virtual meeting, everyone's posture is gonna be wrong. Nobody's gonna be using their hands. You're gonna have all the ins now. So those are things that are gonna jump out at you, right? But look at those people, see what's going on, interact with them, right? So if somebody's doing something that's of interest to you, go ahead and put that in the chat or put that thumbs up, right? Those are things you wanna be doing. Thinking of it just a little bit differently in that if we were in a live setting, we would be looking around and engaging with the group. Do the same thing here. But if you are speaking, that your eye point is to the camera.
And Amy, one more question on eyes. What do you recommend for note taking? If you were to write on a piece of paper, you're in the negative power pose. And again, if you're typing, you could also be online shopping. You look distracted.
Yes. Yes. So no online shopping. That's probably that's probably not the one to do. But if you are note taking, here's an example of that. So I have my stand-up desk that's lowered right now and I'm sitting, but it's still on my desk. So that's what's raising my computer right now, which means I also have enough space for a piece of paper. So if I'm taking notes on a meeting, this is how I'm currently taking notes. I'm not in low power. So the best option there, and I know we use books a lot, but the best option there is to also get something raised to where you can put those notes down instead of, putting it in your lap, because that's obviously low power, or putting it on the table that's lower. These are all those little finite, minute things that will absolutely grow and expand your business. But I would level that up. Any other questions on that? Okay, so that's your triple threat. That is your first impression on virtual. Your triple threat is your posture, your hands, and your eyes. That is truly your first impression triple threat. And you can do that, obviously, again, when we get back into in-person things as well. Try it out. If you're going to the store now or, running errands, doing those things, we're out and about still a little bit today. Be mindful of that. Say, okay, I'm going to the grocery store today, so what I'm going to do is really practice on my posture and how I'm standing up. I might do my little Superman, Superwoman pose in my car before I get out, and I'm just going to see what that attracts. It's a law of attraction. It's something that happens. It's called the halo effect, actually, where it brings people into you. Just try it out. Play around with it in a completely comfortable space that you don't care about anybody around you, and it will help you with this. Okay, so to round this out today, we're going to talk a little bit about getting off the elevator. This is a very high-level overview. This is a whole nother class in itself, but really your introduction matters. So we got past the technology side and all the setup and all that amazing stuff. And then we got past our first impression and we nailed that. Now what comes? The introduction. Can you please introduce yourself? And what do we say? We say, hi, I'm Amy. I'm a Canopy consultant with 15 to 17 years of sales. Happy to be here. Right? That's our typical elevator pitch or introduction. What if we were to change that to create a spark, to be memorable, to start that conversation? So changing this a little bit in our thinking of how do we create something that says our passion. So if you noticed in the beginning, I said, my passion is to get you excited about how you communicate and connect to people to grow your business. What it did not have was my title, my services, or my organization. The first time you do this is going to be challenging as all get out, because we're just trained. It's a social norm for us to rattle off our title, our organization, and our services. So really start thinking about that in a different way. How can I bring this to the table that's unique to me? What is my passion? What do I get excited about? What can I do to bring value to these people that I'm speaking with? So I did both of those. I used passion in the sentence in the introduction, and then I said my passion is to help you get excited about what I'm excited about, to grow your business in a different way and thinking of it in a different way, okay? Getting out of the box a little bit. Here's some examples and ways you can do that. Think about what you love most and what comes the easiest to you today in your job. That's your superpower. Use that. If you're really stuck on that, ask, inquire with people around you. Hey, what attracts you to me? What's super fun about me? What's completely different about me? A lot of times when I ask this is also a really great question you should be asking anyone that you work with at least once a year. Not how are our products doing, how's our turn times or anything like that, but what is it about me personally that keeps you here? A lot of times when I do this, it'll come back as a trend, and mine is energy. People like my energy. So I use that, right? I am passionate, and I really am, about what I do, and I love helping others connect with that, okay? Get creative and have fun with it. So again, use your surroundings. We talked a little bit about the books that elevate your computer up. Easy way to do that is to do a poll around that and say, what are you using? Inevitably, people will be using books. And then you can say, what are you reading today? What is a great book that you've been reading? Super easy way to get that engaged, right? Okay, so an example here, and this is an example of mine, is as of late, I'm an Instacart Ninja shopper for all my groceries. I'm also a dog walker now because I have a little dog at home, because as quarantine has happened, everyone now has a dog. And then beyond that, I'm passionate about helping companies tap into their full communication, on and on and on, right? So use your surroundings, use your elements. Everyone is Zoomed out. Everyone has gone through COVID, right? So we're all in this together. Use those things, okay? You can also say, I am now a book lover. Never been a book lover before, but this year I've opened so many books, blah, 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 okay? The last one, this example, this is always my favorite. We connect millions of people in real life, and I can't see the whole thing, but through a community marketplace so that you can belong anywhere. This is Airbnb. We all know who Airbnb is and what they do, but if we did not, this is not saying what their product is, like what their title is and who they are. It's giving you an emotion that you want to join them, right? So this is another way to think about this. We all now want to go to an Airbnb because of this statement, okay? So it's a unique pitch method. That's what you're doing. And Science of People did this study with Shark Tank. This was a while ago when they had 495 pitches that had been done at the time. And out of the 495, 253 of those got the deal within Shark Tank. So the big question with Science of People was, why would the 253 get the deal and the rest would not? It was because of their unique pitch. That was a differentiator between getting the deal and not getting the deal. So if you combined all the things we talked about with your technology, your setup, your nonverbal communication, and then out the gate with this unique pitch method, you are solid to move business forward, okay? Something to think about a little bit differently. Do we have a question in the chat at all? Just want to make sure. Okay. Okay. And lastly, to round this out today, something to think about. So once we get on a call, off of a call, what do we do? How do we create unique touch points, right? To keep those sparks going, to keep that engagement going. Here's some tools that you can utilize. I think we are going to send out a follow-up email with all of these links for you two to make this easier. But video is a great one, right? We're all on video now. We've heard it before COVID and before Zoom calls. You should be doing video. Well, you really should be doing video. So if you are a text person, for example, and you're texting someone, go ahead and click record on your camera and say, hey, Rachel, it was so great to see you today. I can't wait to get caught up with you again in the next couple of weeks over coffee. Have a great week. Send that in a text. That's your differentiator, right? That's your spark engagement. Sending a thanks. This app, I can't tell you enough about. It's actually called Thanks, which THNKS. There's no A in the middle of that. That's an app on your phone. You can also download it on your computer. And this gives you a way to follow up really uniquely with people. A lot of times I'll send a thanks a latte to a team, and they each get an individual latte from Starbucks. They get a barcode. The next time they go to Starbucks, it's on me, right? That's a unique differentiator, something to create the spark. Facebook Messenger is a different one. Send them a book. We're talking about books a lot again now lately, right? Some books I'm reading, some things that really changed my life. So this book right here by Amy Cuddy. Anybody read this? Presence by Amy Cuddy? This is one to add to your list if you have not read this. This actually changed the way I did business 17 some years ago when I started in sales. Literally the way I changed business. She has a amazing story, and it's all around how she came back from a brain injury, and she really used her presence and her nonverbal to catapult. It's a really good one. The other one that I suggest is Wealth Warrior. This is an amazing book for any entrepreneur, any business person. Wealth Warrior is amazing. And it talks all around kind of what we're talking about here, the give to get feature, that you want to give things out and make things of value to be able to propel your business forward. That's what this is about. So send them a book. Make sure you've read it. Make sure you've read it, but send them a book. The other fun thing you can do is create bookmarks. So I have bookmarks that have company name and all my contact information on one side, and on the other side, it has a quote, because I'm a quote junkie, and that's part of who I am. That differentiates me, right? So I have a quote on one side, and I just put the bookmark in there, and I ship them a book. Way to be memorable. The other things are creative tools. So Canva is a great one for creating a whole bunch of social media stuff if you're into that and doing that. You can play around with all these. Pixels is the same. It's a great website for free photos, stock photos. These are just a handful of these, right? There's thousands of these out there, but these are some things to kind of get you going on that. And the last thing I'll say to wrap up is, this quote is just so dear to my heart, but It's not your customer's job or your client's job or your team's job to remember you. It's your obligation and your responsibility to make sure that they never have a chance to forget you. So how do you do that? And that's something that can be unique to you any step of the way. Okay? Any questions?
Thank you so much, Amy. I think we're running a little long. If you have additional questions, please feel free to email them to me, and we'll pass them along to Amy and get back to you. But I think those Zoom fundamental tips you shared are so crucial, and all the insights and the personal stories that you shared also on body language and how to create a spark are so thought-provoking. So thank you to Amy. Thank you for being here today. And thanks to all of you for joining our first virtual event. Our next virtual event will be on activating intersectionality in the workplace. So really interesting topic. That'll be hosted by Canopy Diversity and Equity expert Simone, and it will take place on Thursday, November 12th at 9 a.m. So please mark your calendars, and we will be sending out additional information soon. So thank you for being here. Thank you again, Amy. Thanks for all the thought-provoking questions, and we look forward to seeing you all on Zoom or in person soon.
Wave. Yay.
Yay.